right, so we're with Itoro Bassey. Thank you so much for being here for We Are Jersey Magazine to talk about your new book, titled Faith. So I don't want to keep you too long again because I know it's late. We're on different time zones. So let's just hop right into the gritty of the book and without giving us too much, what's your book about?
Sure. Yeah, the book follows a Nigerian American girl. It's her coming of age tale, growing up in the States, being born and raised, but being somebody of Nigerian origin, her parents being born in Nigeria, and then her decision to return to Nigeria and just following the process of what that's like, while also focusing on different women in her family who have had to make similar choices around identity and migration and also assimilating into a different society.
Absolutely. So what led you to this point? What was your journey before writing this book, or what kind of led you to writing the book?
Yeah, it kind of snuck up on me. I've been writing ever since I was really young. So it started just with me writing short stories, just little vignettes about things that I thought were important, specifically about just what it means to grow up a first generation, have all of these different identities that you're managing and navigating, whether that be being Black, being a woman, being African, being working class, all of those things. And I just would write different stories about that. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I think this could be a book. So then it became about how to put all of these stories together that seemed disparate in ways. So it was interesting spending the last 2 years figuring out how to put everything together and have like a clear storyline. But that's how.
Right. So it kind of intertwines different experiences and brings them all together, which is something a lot of us can relate to, because I'm sure we all have, different family backgrounds and how we were raised. And I'm a first generation American, so I can understand that as well, coming from an immigrant family and kind of being so immersed in your culture, but so removed from it at the same time. I can definitely relate to that. I'm sure a lot of people can as well. How much of the book would you say was inspired by your own experiences?
Wow, I would say a good chunk of it certainly was. And also just the experiences of other people who know what it's like to come from immigrant families, know what it's like to be Black in America, which becomes a quite collective experience, even though there are nuances to that experience. It's just
Absolutely.
if you're Black in America, you're Black in America.
Yeah, we can all relate to some part of that. Absolutely.
Very true.
Yeah.
So all of those things, I just wanted to write a book that would honor all the people I had known who had grappled in some way with this kind of experience.
Yeah, which again, a lot of us definitely can, especially being, like you said, being Black. That's a whole experience in itself, coming from any type of family, really, but an immigrant family obviously is a little bit different. So definitely I can relate to that. So I found a quote from you online where you said, I had always found a gathering of women sharing their stories and wisdom an effective way to touch the divine. So how did women and the power of telling stories from women's point of view influence and inspire your book Faith?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would definitely say for me, just in my own personal experience, the inspiration actually came from the absence of women not telling their story. So also a way of trying to write absence became a big question of mine. So I had to, in a way, imagine these women, especially in my own family, because the other thing about migration and immigration and assimilation is that at times you get completely estranged from your family on the homeland. And sometimes you don't get to meet them. Sometimes they die. Sometimes they don't want to talk about the past.
Right, it's like a stigma. There's like stigma around speaking your truth.
Exactly.
Which is really unfortunate. But yeah, I can appreciate that you're telling stories that are missing, essentially.
Yeah. So I would say that was like the big thing for me. And then also talking to the people, the women in my life who would speak, and then figuring out how to form a cohesive story. But a lot of faith deals with intergenerational trauma and absence. and how do you navigate, especially as somebody who's trying to find a cohesive identity through that
Hmm.
type of fragmentation. And I think so
Yeah,
many of us can relate to.
absolutely. And some of us
Yeah.
can learn from that as well, because, if we don't have the guidance and we don't have someone, I guess, passing down generational stories and stuff like that, it becomes lost. And then you kind of end up trying to search for your own identity. So that's beautiful. How did you decide on the title of Faith?
You know, this was a hard one. I always say I'm not the best with titles, first of all.
Hmm.
So I usually just name it the first thing that I'm thinking about.
Hmm.
But when I was thinking, like, what's the ethos of this book? What's the energy? What's the spirit of it? It really, that was the word that came to me. And I was like, I feel like it's so controversial because it feels in a way very religious, but it's not. But yet it's,
Hmm.
so it's just like, what kind of tone is it going to have? But when I really sat with it, I was just like, I think faith encompasses just the reality of how you have
Yeah.
to take that leap
Navigate.
of faith.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, so speaking about the book and what it's about and everything, it kind of seems like it can be like a healing experience. You know what I mean? Like telling your story, getting stories from others, finding how that fits into your life. So would you say that's something that, readers could gain from your book, is some sort of like healing, or at least like filling a gap of something that's missing for them?
I think more of the latter. I mean, with healing and stuff, I definitely feel like I've been on my own healing journey for sure.
Yeah.
And if there's anything I'm learning, is that healing is really non-linear and very messy. And every
Hmm.
time I think I'm doing all right, I'm like, ooh, I don't know. The next day,
Hmm.
something will happen and get thrown into my lap where I'm like, I don't know. I feel like a baby again, or like, I have
Hmm.
to have a beginner's mind again. So if anything, I wanted to write a book that's relatable, that shows women, especially who don't quite measure up, who are messy, who at times aren't likable, and who
Right.
are trying to do better, but can only do what they can do. So,
Absolutely. And it's funny that healing takes a lot of faith in itself. Like, I'm saying, there's ups, there's downs. You kind of don't know what direction you're going in sometimes. So I can definitely see how faith would be encompassed in all of that. Um, was there anything you left out of the book? You're sharing a lot of stories of your personal experience, a lot of stories of other women, but were there some things that you were like, okay, maybe this is, too deep or too much to put into writing? Or do you feel like you did the opposite and put a lot of more, like, not personal things, but a lot of more like things that wouldn't normally be spoken about?
I feel like I did the opposite.
Mm,
I feel like I put a lot in the book that when I read through it, I was like, ooh, you're really putting that in there. But again, it's like faith, a leap of
mm-hmm,
faith that it's the right thing to put in, and
mm-hmm,
that it's something that people will relate to. Because one of my promises to myself was to write the absent, write
mm,
the things that people don't want to talk about, that makes life
mm-hmm.
very uncomfortable in navigating, because we're navigating around all this blank space. So what happens when you start naming it was something I wanted to do.
I like that, because again, there's so much that's hidden, but if we expose it, it could do better for us in the long run. So I can appreciate that, definitely. Um, so more about you. You're a writer. Um, how was your experience of writing the book, or just your experience in life? How did that contribute to like where you are now? Because like I said, we're on different time zones because you're all the way in Nigeria. So at what point were you prompted to be like, okay, I'm gonna make this move?
For the book specifically, or just
Um, you can
in
incorporate both. Like, how did
okay.
did writing the book contribute to your move, or was it something you were always planning to do? Or
Yeah. I,
yeah.
I I would actually say it was a bit of both. I mean, again, that's why I'm like, I've been on a healing journey. What actually led me back to the continent was a writing program that I was supposed to take part in Kenya.
Mm,
And then from Kenya, I met somebody who was coming from Nigeria, who was the one who eventually ended up getting me work out here as a
mm,
journalist in media. And that all kind of, I would say, was divinely aligned in a way. It
mm,
wasn't something I asked for, that I even
right.
knew would happen, but I just kept trusting that if I don't want to go back to the States, And that was something I had to really deal with. And this was like a year or two before COVID hit. I think a year actually before COVID hit. And it was around the time of Trump when he had shut down the government. So I remember it was around Christmas time. And I was
Mm,
asking myself, well, what kind of country will I be returning to? Um, and I was having all of this anxiety around going back. And then I spoke to someone and she was just like, why don't you just stay? And I had never even thought about that possibility in my life.
mm,
And then I decided to take the leap and just to become a freelance writer. And then all of a sudden,
mm,
this whole other path opened up for me. And through all of that, I was constantly writing. And thankfully,
mm,
that's something about me that's always stayed consistent throughout all of the twists and turns. I've
mm.
always written and kind of charted, tracked this path I've been on. And then
Right.
from there, that's when I was just like, I think this can actually turn into something that would help a lot of people, but
Hmm.
also that could be like a substantial piece of literary fiction, because I
Mm.
love literature.
Yeah. I think, there will be a lot of emotional substance that you can get from the book. Just reading the synopsis, I just feel like there's so much that you'll be able to gain and understand more about yourself. And again, for people who have these shared experiences of being Black, being a woman, being from an immigrant family, all those things are encompassed here. So what are you most looking forward to as we get ready for the book to drop? Like, are you anticipating anything? Do you have anything lined up? Anything special?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited just to meet people and to like talk about again our shared experiences because I think
Mm-hmm.
just I mean, I think it's beautiful like all of the narratives that are coming out about like women like us, and people like us. And I
Mm-hmm.
just want to see even more of those narratives and especially more narratives of people questioning and grappling with being in the US and this whole idea of the American dream and is this the right place geographically for me? And I feel like especially when Trump got elected, wherever you stand with it, there was just so many conversations amongst specifically Black women, but also Black people in general around
Mm-hmm.
should I stay in this country? So I want to see more narratives of how we navigate, even when we decide to choose to stay in the US, wherever we decide that we're the best suited for. I
Yeah.
just would love to see more stories around that. So that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited just to get this baby out because it's been a
Mm-hmm.
baby that's been
Mm-hmm.
waiting to be birthed for almost a decade.
Mm.
So, and I have some talks coming up, which I'm excited for in the new year around the book and maybe a
Mm-hmm.
little book tour. So,
Nice.
yeah.
That'd be lovely. It's funny just to touch back on what you were saying about people thinking about their experience in the US and, is there another option for me? I think a lot of, especially Black people and marginalized people, we don't even think about leaving where we are. A lot of people don't think about, is there another option for me? I know, like, if you're from an immigrant family, you can always consider, going back to your homeland, relocating back if you have family. But I feel like Black women, especially over these past 2 years, I've seen so many Black women just go. They've gone to different countries, they're living completely different experiences, and they're literally blossoming in these spaces where they don't feel stifled and, where it's just not so harsh because it gets real here, honestly. So that's something I'm looking forward to seeing more of that trend and how that plays out. But I see nothing but positive things so far. So I'm looking forward to your own experiences as well. And if you write more about that in your upcoming writing, are you working on anything right now?
No, I can't wait until I finally do, but right now it's been faith central just
Yeah,
about getting this particular baby out, but I'm excited for what's to come after.
absolutely. Um, so when the book's available, when is it going to be dropping?
The books will be dropping January 15th.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's coming up. It's coming up
Yeah,
soon.
nice.
And
And
pre-orders are available right now.
perfect.
So,
We'll make sure to drop all the links to everything that you're doing. And I'm very excited to read your book. So I can't wait for the rest of the world to, like I said, be, engulfed in these stories and to read them and to relate to them and all that. Again, it's just a healing journey. And along the way, you always have to have faith. So hopefully a lot of people have faith on their bookshelves this coming winter and spring. I know I will. I'm definitely going to pre-order my copy.
Oh, great. Thanks
yeah,
so
absolutely.
much.
Because this is right up my alley of just, again, immigrant stories, being a woman, being marginalized. I write as well. So I'm looking forward to everything that you got coming up. So we can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for being with us. And again, thank you so much for, sharing your story and continuing to share stories with the world. And for the audience, you can find Itoro's writing all over the internet. She's written a lot of things aside from faith, but faith is the big baby, like you said, that's coming up. So we're really looking forward to that. So we look forward to, meeting with you again. Hopefully after the book drops, we have another follow-up about how it's doing and how everyone's responding to it. And I'm looking forward to see how people respond to it as well. So thank you so much for writing much needed content.
Thank you.
All right. So like I said, I didn't want to keep you too long because I know it's late there and we started late, and I'm sure you have things to do tomorrow. So
very true. Well, thank you for taking the time.
Of course, it was great speaking with you. And I look forward to speaking with you more and catching up, like I said, after the release of Faith, which drops in January. All the links will be at the bottom of the video. So make sure you get your pre-order copies. Make sure you go read that little synopsis because that alone filled my cup. So I know the book will be overflowing. So I'm very looking forward to that. So thank you so much, Itoro. All the best for the new year. And we will definitely be keeping up with you here at We Are Jersey.
Thanks. Bye.
Have a good night. Bye.
You too.
We are Jersey. We are Jersey. We are Jersey.